Go ahead, go live.
You're live.
I'm live. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the Laws, Ordinance, Zoning, and Permits Committee to order for May 4th. This is a special meeting due to a conflict. Yesterday we weren't able to have the regular Tuesday meeting, so this is a special. We have members of the committee are here. We've got Carol and myself, and Dr. Felder is not with us tonight. He had a conflict of interest, so he can't make it tonight. So I'd entertain a motion to excuse Dr. Felder. Motion was made. I will second that. The minutes, Kara, did you get a chance to look at the minutes at all?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes from the April 5th meeting. I'll second that. Approval of the agenda. We can take items off the agenda, but we can't add anything to it due to the fact that it's a special meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the agenda, and I will second that. And so we'll start right in. It's airport ODOT grant. I'll start it off. This was one that we applied for last year and didn't get. So this is kind of a reapplication. And would anybody want to elaborate on it beyond that? Tom or Nikki? I'm sorry.
Third time is a charm.
Oh, third time. This is the third time.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It's a 95/5 grant, so we'd be paying 5%, and the estimate's $270,000. So this is an automated weather observing system. So pilots flying into the airport will be able to get advanced information about weather conditions before they land.
And this is, if I remember correctly, it's based on several locations down the runway, if I'm not mistaken, or is it one location?
I think it's just one.
Just one.
Point.
Okay.
But
okay.
yeah, like I said, this is the third time, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, I know this has been, like I say, this is the third time for it, and we've approved to apply for it the other two times. So, if somebody's got some questions.
I don't have any questions. I can make a motion to move ordinance 2022-39 to full council.
Okay, and I'll second that motion. And what we'll do then is this will go ahead and go on to full council. Ordinance 2022-39.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Can I raise a point here? And it's just something that the committees have started getting into this pattern. You really should be taking a vote after your motion and second. I realize there's only two of you. Sounds absurd. It's just building the record, and I would respectfully request that you actually ask for a vote.
Oh, okay. I was under the impression that.
I understand.
Okay. We will do that. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried 2-0 then. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Moving on is the.
Anyone be nitpick a little more? Doc doesn't have a conflict of interest, does he?
He's had
He's got something else going on. He doesn't have a conflict of interest.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
I only say that because I'm in a nitpicky mood. Just joking, but there are a bunch of people there. Here, not there, here, right out there in the audience.
Well,
and so, yeah, go ahead.
Well, actually, in respect, though,
Yeah.
it is a conflict because he's not here. He's in another venue, so it is in
Well,
or prior. Let's just say it's a prior commitment, and we'll leave it at that.
I'm
Okay?
pointing out he has no apparent conflict of interest
As
with
far
the subject
as-
that brings everyone here.
Right. That's
what I wanted to clarify.
Okay. You're right. Okay. Amended galleon codified ordinances on duplexes. This is a continued discussion. I'm going to I don't know where we want to start with this right offhand. We do have, Mr. Palmer.
If you look at your minutes from last meeting, it was proposed that the law director amend the code, and I'm assuming that that meant to prepare an ordinance to do so, to allow duplexes that were built as duplexes in the R1C zoning district. With that in mind, I prepared the language. I sent that out, I don't know, a month or two ago. And so the ordinance that would do that is in front of you. Like any ordinance, the top part is the current situation. 113502 governs permitted uses in the R1C district, which currently is limited to one-family detached dwellings, public parks, playgrounds, and open space. And at the bottom, and the therefore section, that would expand to add C, two-family dwellings in structures originally designed for that purpose. So that is just fulfilling your request that I do this, and I did.
Right. And actually, I think I mimicked Dr. Fellner, who isn't here tonight, that was his thought, was to take and have the permitted uses a addition to that for the two-family dwellings.
And this wouldn't stop, like if there was a three house or three apartment unit that is being occupied and being sold, that wouldn't stop that house from staying 3 units, would it?
That's correct.
Okay.
Those are grandfathered in. They're called non-conforming uses.
Okay.
They're allowed to continue until such time as that non-conforming use is discontinued, and there's a period of time which goes by when that's the case. After that time, then it would be a problem. But things currently used as duplexes or triplexes or whatever in R1C or in any other district in Galion can be sold as is.
Now, what this essentially is doing is allowing for buildings that had at one point in time in back being maybe it was a single family, it got changed to a dual family, and then subsequently it was left abandoned or not. It wasn't being used as a double family again, and it went past that time frame that you were speaking of.
Yeah, this doesn't cover that at all.
Okay.
That's a non-conforming use, and
Right.
that's not what this is. This is actually the opposite. This is saying that these things from now on will be permitted uses.
Right.
So they don't even need planning commission approval. They're permitted uses.
If they were,
If they originally, and I will say this, I did sit down, actually may have been on the phone with Eric Waldinger, who obviously is a person that would be involved in the interpretation of this, is what he does. And we talked through this because I wanted to see if he and I had sort of, because the language here is what would be used. And if this could be better language, then I and everybody else would be interested to know what that better language would be. And if he had any input into that. So we talked about specific houses around Galion that we were aware that fit this category. And I think this may be one of those situations where there is no absolutely 100% ideal language to use, but we seem to think that there was, most of those things would be self-evident. What is certainly true is that it would be incumbent upon the property owner to show that it was originally used for it.
That was going to be my next question. Was
Yeah.
who would be responsible for all the research to say, well, back in 1884, this house was built as a duplex?
Got it, but yeah, but you kind of do that anyway when you're applying for a permit for something. It's basically, it's referred to as burden of proof. You're responsible to show.
Well, my concern is that most of our housing units were built when the community was pushing 15,000, and now we're at 10,000. There were single-family homes that were converted during the high population that have sat dormant. with 1 unit. Okay, if that sets for 2 years, so what, the triplex, I don't see anybody fighting for the triplex, but the one that's come to mind, I drive past it nearly every day, across just north of the post office. That Skip's been working on that man for years. I toured it about a year ago, and you know how your memory is sometimes. I think it's a multi-family. I think that's what he expects to use it as. So this doesn't fix that.
But as long as the utilities have been turned on in all of those units during that time, then it's counted as occupied?
I think the burden of proof that it was occupied is on the person who wants to have the
You're right.
non-conforming use continue.
You're right, Tom.
So I understand the neighborhood issue. Spent a lot of time thinking about it, but another competing issue is to get more housing units available. There's a shortage of housing, and there's a lot of attention to, we need single-family houses built, we need new stuff. The reality is most everybody in town lives in an older home. Heck, they live in a home that's for the most part older than them. So that's the housing side we've got. When you look at rates and you look at building materials over the next, let's say, a couple of years, I want to be careful not to shut down housing that for a couple of decades was pretty solid duplex. But because the entrance is on the side, it's not in the front, it doesn't fit the oops, it's kind of, that was built as a duplex. Then those type of houses will get fenced out. And it would make those properties that have duplex convertibility or already were converted to duplex that need a few tens of thousands to get them back in the market, you just take those off the market. I don't know if that's the intent, then change the ordinance, but I don't think that's the intent. And I would rather have our building inspector focusing on the opportunities for those kinds of things. This has sat for a long time, maybe 2 years. This is the kind of house that could be readily converted. Instead of walling off that you're seeing and trying to, you're looking for opportunities and not, busted, non-conforming use, more than 2 years, you're out of luck. Because that gets to the zombie property has a more specific need, but that will orphan those properties. I don't know if it'll be zombies or not. It's that kind of more specific meaning these days. But they'll set unused.
Well, I guess go ahead, Thomas.
Well, I was going to mention really quick in response to that particular property, if a property is being worked on, and that property has actually been vacant for 4 or 5 years, but it's been worked on during that entire period. The non-conforming use period, that 2-year magic 2 years, can be tolled. You know what I mean by tolling something? Mm-hmm. It can be extended.
Right.
If someone is doing that, you have to manifest intent to abandon the non-conforming use. And in that particular case, there's clearly, if it was used not as a non-conforming before, I don't know. It's a fairly normal size, probably 1,800 square foot property, maybe 17 to 1,800 square foot. I imagine it's slightly larger than my house. I'm not sure.
It's a big old home.
Yeah, that's it. Well, the question my question was originally designed, that verbiage is not to convey a specific style of a duplex? Is it in the sense of, say for example, a house that has two entrances established, wherever that entrance is, that may have a entrance like the mayor was saying that has more towards the back, that they have the upper room. I didn't think, my interpretation was that doesn't define it as it has to be side by side as opposed to over one another or anything like that. Or am I?
Well, you're going right back to what I said before, is I wanted good wording. And if the wording isn't, to my mind, design refers to the way it's structured. You could put designed or used. So a house that was originally used as a duplex, that's a way to get away from the specifics of where the doors are and the like.
Well, yeah, I can see, and I think going back to what we originally was talking about, this was the idea that we do have older homes in the community that, for many reasons, but one of the reasons is because at one time they were changed from a single family to a duplex style, however that change occurred. But due to non-interest or legalities or whatever, has been essentially sitting dormant. Okay, so the idea would be to take and be able to still utilize those, because the current zoning is for strictly after 2 years of being dormant is a single family, and that's a state law issue.
Yeah, I was going to mention the fact that that's not a local
That's not
thing.
That's
The state of
so
Ohio.
to try to take and to try to be able to open that up more to the opportunities for, as Tom was saying, about having more available usage of different properties without affecting the issue, because we have to, in my opinion, you have to always realize that you get into a rental duplex situation that in the perfect world you have great landlords that keep the property up. You have great tenants that maintain, or at least do their part to keep the property up. In the real world, that doesn't always coincide, unfortunately. So we have, that's, in my opinion, that's one of the things that we have to look at as far as property owners in the same vicinity that don't have duplexes, that are owners of the property.
I will say that this change that is before you is obviously the most simple change that you can do.
Right.
And it is also the only one I can think of that probably wouldn't necessitate going in and tweaking more of the zoning code. Because each zoning code, each district stands independently. It has purposes. The purpose of R1C right now is to steer things towards single family. And if you're going to change R1C to make that different, you're going to have to bring new language, because it has to be consistent with the purpose.
Sure.
Because that's the legality of zoning is all wrapped up in that.
I agree with what Tom said. I don't want to hinder the ability of future landowners or property owners to be able to make appropriate conversions or go back to them. I don't know. I know that Dr. Feldman, you liked kind of switching it with this real simple language, but I liked the Tiffin example that we looked at and some of the other ones last time, because it did give a little bit more flexibility. I think that this is now the third month we've talked about this. I don't know. I think that this will fix the problem that we have right now, but it's going to be a continued conversation, because as things change, as we need to continue to make affordable housing for people that's appropriate. It's going to be what, kind of what Tom said, is we're gonna have to start thinking creatively. So I think that this ordinance would allow us to move forward with what we need to right now to kind of think about the issue that was brought up that even started this conversation, but also I think that having a more long-term conversation about how we can allow property owners to do what they want with their property, as long as it's safe and conforming and, nice, whatever, but I don't think that we should lock anyone out of doing what they want. It's tricky. Zoning's hard.
So,
I don't wanna wait another month to put this through though, so I think that, this, Thomas, how you have this put in here is exactly what you were asked to do.
Yeah.
And it's the very simple version that requires the less amount of work for zoning and all that stuff, so I think that this does satisfy what we came here to talk about. I think thinking long-term about housing development and the market, we're gonna have a conversation later, to discuss, what this is gonna look moving forward for the future, yeah.
well, Karen, I agree with both of you, really, in the sense of that it is something we're going to have to talk more in depth about.
I might mention that this is not something you'll be passing on full council right now.
Because it has to
You'll be passing to the planning commission.
Right.
Typically what happens is, if you're in sort of agreement with it and you do that, then the public hearing will go ahead and be established for the first meeting after 30 days after today. And the planning commission in that time will have had a chance to look at it.
I think we should do that.
Yeah, and somehow I got the wrong copy here. Section 2 is the thing does not belong there, so it would need to be, so I don't know if I threw the wrong one away. But yeah, those would just be renumbered. Section 2 would not be there.
What's
The
the
home
one
rule
that says?
thing, home rule powers, so you had to take that out, but I just don't know what
So
it is.
just remove section 2.
Yeah, and then just be renumbered. I just saw that I messed that up.
Okay, do we need to motion that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So we take
Well, it still
that.
has a blank there. Do we want to fill in that blank while we're making the change? The earliest we can have the public hearing would be June 14th.
Okay, I agree with Kara. We've talked about this a couple of times now, committee. Let's go ahead and move at least this part of it forward. It can be amended, if need be, but we don't want to be sitting here for a long period of time, because I know there's folks out there that, want to get on to doing other things.
I think in this one, expediency, just to get it done, I think is the wrong path. I think that if you set this date, that puts an unfair, people who know me fairness, he's getting down to the bottom of the barrel, it's about fairness, but it put the planning commission in a difficult position. And my count of the planning commission is, I don't know if this gets passed. There's 5 voters. There's 4 of them here.
Right. I appreciate it.
And my hunch is that my instincts aren't absolute, but I don't know if you got the votes in planning to pass this.
Well, that's.
So why would you set the date?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because, do we have to set a date on this?
Nope, you don't. You can just pass this on as a recommendation to the planning commission.
Let's just do that. I don't want to, again, we've talked about it for several months, like Kara mentioned, that this is something we don't want to push through. We want to make sure we cover, and for everybody's concern. So let's not change that. Do we need to change it? Delete section 2, though.
Yeah, just delete section 2 and renumber it, so.
Okay, we'll just make a motion to delete it, this period, and then you can renumber it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make that motion to delete section 2 on ordinance 2022-41.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 2-1, or 2-0.
Before we're done, isn't this it? The end of this?
Yeah.
You got something else? What do we got?
Vote to send it back.
What? Oh, fireworks?
Yeah.
Then I will go ahead and reinforce this. Because almost everybody in here lives in a single family home, not everyone lives in a single family home. That doesn't mean that the majority of people in this community don't live in rental properties. And when you take the existing and the only ones that it has sat dormant, and our approach is to disqualify and not qualify these properties, you're going to constrain the amount for younger Galleonites that have one adult, maybe one income. So there's a place for that smaller apartment. I think, well, most of us live in single family, their own homes that are in this room right now. I bet you almost everybody lived in an apartment that may not qualify under these definitions. So don't. It's hard for young people, particularly who are going through transitions, to find housing. So, and we're under pressure as a community to take tax credits to build new rental housing, while you've got existing rental housing that is maybe a better investment away.
So what are you indicating, Tom, is?
I'm saying that maybe I'll just pay someone to drive around and take pictures of all the places that if it sat for 2 years, you could never convert that upstairs apartment that you find from the back door. I'm just saying that one of the first apartments I lived in, if that had sat for 2 years, it wouldn't be permissible. So I'm just concerned about that.
But if you think that 4 out of 5 planning commission members won't vote for this, do you think that they would vote?
It only takes 3.
Well, 3.
Would they vote for that? I don't know.
So go along with what you said, Mayor, there. That sitting dormant is not how it's been judged in court.
Okay.
So it's trying to change the use of the property is how it sits. So I think that's where we kind of run into some trouble here, at least with my property. How it's been ruled multiple cases across the country with this federal law. It's not that it sits dormant, it's if they convert it away from its original use or from its use while the new zoning's there. That's when it loses compliance. So I heard last time, and sorry for my late arrival, I had some patients, so I couldn't get here at the beginning, but from you even, last time is, we're not necessarily upset with the houses that have 3 separate entrances for 3 separate apartments, 3 separate utilities. I think what we want to get away from, at least in my opinion, if we're trying to upscale Galleon away, is those monster houses. So when you have 5 units in an old Victorian home, all on 1 water meter, 1 electric meter, they're just wired different. You have someone living in their kitchen, which is the bathroom as well. I think that's kind of the focus there. So why not use the federal, the 2-year rule, the federal 2-year rule as it was meant, how it is currently being used, to allow those properties to exist. Also, while I got the floor, I want to speak on, while I've been discussing this with Mr. Palmer, so on and so forth, we're 3 weeks into not getting all of our questions answered. You know, I went through the proper litigation here. I hired a lawyer that specializes in this, and I mean, it's been 4 weeks since I've got all of our questions answered, and a week and a half maybe since we've even got a reply from our most recent email. So it's, I guess I don't, are we trying to just slow this down? Or is...
No, we haven't. What we end up, whatever this committee does in this regard, has to go to planning, which they have to further discuss and vote on it.
Yeah, mine's not a zoning issue though. This is just interpretation of the current law. Sorry, I kind of brought in a separate issue while I was
I
here.
was gonna say,
We're really talking about two issues here. Some about non-conforming uses. We're talking about creating duplexes or fitting duplexes into a permitted use scheme, which is a different animal altogether. There's been no delays on this at all. And it's not federal, it's not litigation. There's been nothing filed with the city. The city hasn't filed anything. There's no litigation involved, simply communication with two attorneys. And that's never been litigation in my book. And we are dealing with a state law here. This is Ohio's non-conforming use statute, which is that 2-year period of time. It's not federal law, it's the state law. And so the question is how has state courts interpreted that law? So that's the non-conforming use case. That's not what we're discussing tonight. It's related, but it's not what we're discussing.
I guess I think that at this point in time, at least for the discussion now, that to go ahead and pass this along with it being open to zoning and planning and see what they determine. And then I'd like to revisit what you're discussing with this committee, okay? Because there's nobody here in this that's wanting to limit the opportunities for Galleon to grow, for families to come into the community. And then again, we also want to take and protect the citizens that are here that have a large investment in large houses in different areas, and unfortunately, the R1C area has a lot of older homes, and a lot of them are beautiful older homes. There's some there that unfortunately have, for various reasons, gone to disrepair. So I don't think, there's somebody here that's wanting to downplay any of that. So, and I don't want that impression to be out there, I'll tell you right now. So, but again, we want to try to move this along as maybe not quickly, but obviously a couple of months talking about this not quickly, but to have something to be able to utilize, and then it comes back and we'll go from there. Because again, I like to have that discussion too. I'm going to go ahead and
Just, have you seen the ordinance, Mr. Beck? You should look at it.
Whatever we've been sent, yes.
Because
Go ahead.
the change, the relief, so to speak, is for duplexes.
Yes.
Okay. Just so you know that, it doesn't take care of your situation. So I don't want you to think it does. It doesn't address it. It addresses sort of, I'll call them natural born duplexes.
Are you talking about this? Your revision?
Yeah, this ordinance that they're
Okay.
talking about voting out and then being discussed at planning. It's pretty narrow. In fairness, you ought to, because you've invested in time, you ought to make sure it doesn't address your issue.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, very well. Have a wonderful day.
I was just trying to again, probably not the correct place to interject. Just trying to interject so I can find out why I'm kind of getting dragged along here for what's now 6 months. And it's been this last month has been tough as well. So
I'm about dragging my feet on this, I'll be honest.
okay.
My point of view is different than other people who might be dragging their
Yeah.
feet. But, I don't, if I had a vote in this, I would, I'd put out the gone fishing sign on this. But I do recognize for sure the urgency. It's not, needs to be addressed, but I don't know if we've got it right, is all I'm trying to say.
Well, and that's, I'm glad you said that
Yeah.
there, because, and I agree, I'm not saying, and I don't think, Kara's saying either, that this is the fix-all, okay? But this is a step towards maybe, getting a fix-all. But we need to at least have this part moved into, and you missed the conversation earlier, Mr. Palmer indicated that we may have to actually, you get too much beyond what this addition to the ordinance is going to create, which then starts developing into looking at that whole 2009 rezoning ordinance.
There you go.
So that, and if you get into that, that could be a longer discussion.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Again, yeah, I was not specifically directing towards this.
Okay.
Those
I
are
understand,
considerations.
that's why I mentioned.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, I don't want to sound as if I'm objecting specifically to what we have in front of us here.
Well, let's, I'll go ahead and make a motion to move this on to the planning. I think I already did that, didn't I?
No, we haven't got that
Okay,
yet.
I will make a motion to move the amended ordinance 2022-41 onto the planning commission for their consideration.
What happens after that?
It then comes back.
It comes back to us.
Then we
Well,
send.
yeah, if you guys do that, then I can schedule the public hearing and
Right,
vote it
right.
out.
Something will come back to you. It may not be this.
Correct.
It may be something different. And when you're talking about whether there's enough votes for the planning commission for this version, the planning commission is going to have to get a consensus, 3 votes on some version.
Okay,
So,
that would help.
You don't have to change anything, do you?
well, that's true too. You can leave it with it.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I'm
I'll
going.
second that motion.
I'm gonna have a fishing rod. I'm going.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried 2-0. Moving on to fireworks ordinance discussion. Real quick. And
I will make this as quick as I can, but the opposite is the fact with this one, in that there is an effective date that we're dealing with, and that's July the 1st. So this is a conversation which is going on, and I would estimate 75% of the cities in Ohio. Go to Google and look it up, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The bottom line is, I don't know when it was passed, but it was House Bill 172. I know it is effective on July the 1st. Basically, the way that it works now is that in Ohio, you are allowed to purchase and use certain level of, let's say, fireworks, sparklers, very, very minimal level. You are allowed to purchase the next grade up, if you will, of fireworks, but you're not allowed to discharge them in the state of Ohio. In fact, I think there's a requirement that you do export them within a certain amount of time. So what is happening with this House Bill 172, and I'm going to read you the synopsis of it, it's very short. Beginning July 1st, Ohio residents and non-residents can discharge consumer-grade fireworks in Ohio either on their own property or on another person's property with permission, except where a political subdivision has chosen to opt out, meaning they will not allow people to discharge consumer-grade fireworks. The political subdivision may also choose to place additional restrictions on when a person can discharge consumer-grade fireworks. This discharge can take place on New Year's Eve and Day, Chinese New Year, Cinco de Mayo, Memorial Day weekend, Juneteenth, July 3rd through the 4th, and the Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays preceding and following July 3rd and 4th, Labor Day weekend, and Diwali. I had to learn about Diwali. It apparently, at least this year, takes place in late October. So when I'm talking about this next consumer grade, we're talking, again, you can always already do the sparklers and the like. This would take it to firecrackers, Roman candles, and bottle rockets. Everyone knows what I mean by bottle rockets. It is the case, and again, I encourage you to go online, look up on Google, Ohio Ordinance Council fireworks, or HB 172, and you'll see all these people. most Ohio cities are looking at this right now. And I would say that I don't have a way to gauge, when you read all of these, what the percentage is. I would just tell you that there's a high number of them that I see that are opting out of this, meaning they're maintaining the restrictions that are currently in place. There is a set of rulemaking that's coming out on May 12th from the Ohio Fire Marshal. Obviously, we haven't reached that date yet, so there will be some more guidance. They've been required to do this. But if, again, there's this July 1st, it's not written in stone. I mean, we can, if we don't have it by July 1st, then we would be, in essence, under the new fireworks regime. I have talked to Chief Rodriguez. I've talked to Chief Jackson. I'm aware of what their feelings are to some extent. Although Phil, who I talked to this morning, is still formulating an opinion based on the information he's getting. I don't know if Lieutenant Eagle's here because of that.
Yes.
Anything, sure?
Well, it's a little bit more so than what you're even saying, because it does include reloadable shells up to
Oh, I didn't know. Okay.
1 3/4 inches. So basically anything you can buy at any of the consumer fireworks store. It's the 1.4 fireworks displays that you can use, and we just have to figure out how we're going to do it and what's going to go on. But it is a little bit more extensive.
Didn't know, Todd. Thank you.
Well, it sounds, since this has just come to the committee as a pre-discussion item, so to speak.
It does, but it comes with that little asterisk.
Oh, yeah. My question would be, if Thomas, if you could get us the information on any ordinance that we currently have.
We have none.
We have no ordinance on.
We have no ordinances. We rely on state law.
Oh, okay.
So if we want to have an ordinance, we
create
either need to create our own. It's easy to do, but because what we would do is just adopt state law prior to July 1st, 2022.
I think that would be wise. The homes in Gallion are very close together. I don't know that it would be safe, I guess, to at least 20 new days a year. I'm not a fireworks expert, but it just seems like they're dangerous to have in town. I know there was a rule about it for a long time. And I know that, during the 4th of July weekend and kind of other celebration holidays, we hear them going on a little bit, but I can't imagine the amount that would be happening if it was allowed. I think that just the risk of fires to homes and structures greatly outweighs the benefit of allowing citizens to set off fireworks in town in my neighborhoods.
Well, I know I can agree with you, Karen, because of the fact that, again, we have older homes, and they are in close proximity to each other for various, not only from the back, but from the sides. But again, since this really is the first time we've really heard about it, I'd like to get some more, do a little more research on it. What I'd like to do is go ahead and we'll bring this up at the topic of information on our next committee meeting, which would put it into June.
You won't have a chance to pass
So
it.
we'll probably have to, if we're going to do an ordinance, we'll probably have to do a special committee meeting or have it moved to another committee to get it passed out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd like to make a point.
Yeah.
On fireworks. Who handles like the overseeing of fireworks sold in Ohio?
It's the state fire marshal, they're the ones that classify it.
This, like local townships don't handle that, it's state?
Well, that's
Probably a good idea let the state handle it. State fire marshal deals with that.
He deals with, the state fire marshal's office deals with sale and disbursement. They don't deal with enforcement. That's the city issue.
No.
Not for business?
It's the local.
You go, if there was a fireworks store here, you going?
If there's a fireworks store, I mean, they're allowed to sell. Yeah, it's state certified and it would be state inspected.
They're allowed to-
I'm
they're allowed to
just-
sell
I'm
that
saying
now.
this, I'm just saying this because for a long time, you know, that I don't know, I've been here 12 years, and I know there was a trend of adopting a lot of the state laws instead of having our own laws. And now, like here recently, I've been seeing us reverting back to creating our own laws. You know, so I don't. Yeah, this is another example. Just what you're doing here with the thing, if the state, with
No, we're just discussing it right now.
yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, if you want to create a new set of ordinances, you're kind of going back on adopting state law. So,
The trend in Ohio is for the state to
I'm not
adopt
on the trend.
general laws and then prohibiting the cities from adopting them. Local laws that conflict with them. This is a rare instance where the state is changing their own law and allowing the cities to have a say in it. Doesn't happen very often.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Thomas, is that what I'm getting from this is that the state essentially is saying, we're gonna allow these explosives that have in the past been allowed to be sold, but not to be executed.
Correct.
Okay? They are now going to allow those to be executed on, but they're giving the cities or any community, whatever that is, the opportunity to opt out of that.
I don't know if it's townships too, Mike, because that wasn't what was going to be presented tonight.
Oh, okay.
There was no reason for
I'm
me to
just
know
kind
that.
of grouping that, and I know we're close on time. We're already rolling over into the other committee. So let's go ahead and take this up.
Can I say something, Mike?
Sure, go ahead.
There are a couple things to think about if you're going to go ahead with this. Chief Jackson and myself talked about it. One is whatever rule you make, is who's going to be in charge of the enforcement. As of right now, it's really only on the police. I mean, we go out and we do things, but we don't have the ability to do that. So that's going to be an issue. You know, that's one thing. Whatever you do, whichever way, you're going to have to deal with that. And then the second thing, which I think is very just a galleon issue for the most part, is going to be, well, a couple things. One, we're small. Two, the Galleon Fire Department also services Polk Township. So we have two political subdivisions. Now, you shouldn't care about really what Polk Township is doing, but what we're going to find is right now it's, you know, obviously we don't want anybody hurt, we don't want fires and all that, but the biggest thing about the fires we get every year is the noise. You know, nobody cares if you're lighting them off beside me except for the noise. Well, we're also going to run into is if you look at the, you know, Polk Township totally surrounds Galleon, so we have a lot of areas where my backyard is, you know, I'm in the city of Galleon, my backyard is then Polk Township. So if that guy is lighting off in Polk Township and they're calling us to go out there, we're going to go out there and we're going to say, oh, there's nothing I can do. Because if they don't change it and Galleon does, and then we're going to have to deal with that too. I mean, it's really not our issue, but it's going to be our issue. It's not going to be your issue as in the city, but it's going to be our issue.
That's a good point, appreciate that. That's why I think we need to, at the very least, we'll probably end up having a special meeting. Whether we actually draft anything is still obviously too early to say.
To that end, really quick, I can get you, because I know they exist, as I mentioned before, samples from other cities.
Okay.
I know Berea, for some reason, I happen to know.
Well, the only reason I'm saying about the time frame is because of the time frame involved in it. So, but I mean, the only thing about having anything special is the fact that we have a time frame of July 1st, as it is end, so to speak, now.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
I think you do have a third option, and that is to pass the option, or pass an ordinance to opt out onto council. It'll give you time to do the research that you need to do, and at council it can be voted on whether or not you use it. It gives you that time. So that's the third option. Whether you want to do that or not is up to you, but it's at least another option that you.
Well,
Man,
yeah, go ahead.
because Phil is excellent about sharing stuff. I heard about that from him this afternoon. I'm a little bit surprised. I'm trying to make eye contact with Nikki to see if Chief Rodriguez has talked to you about this.
No, we didn't have a chance.
It's like, come on, man.
Really?
So you're gonna pass an ordinance?
No.
We have no idea. Are you
We're
gonna
not
vote
passing
it out, an ordinance
No,
that, okay, never mind. You understand what I'm saying?
right.
We ought to have the opportunity to talk to the police and fire chief about this
Right.
before there is a rush to get this voted on or have special meetings. And so I don't, please?
So I was just going to say that special, if we decide to have a special meeting, it would be probably a discussionary thing. If there's not, I'm not trying to indicate that we're going to create an ordinance or anything like this. The only constraint was the issue with the July 1st, but again, if we are thinking, and it's too early, I honestly have not done any research on it. I know Kara has not really done any research on it. The bottom line is we haven't got really any input yet other than you folks here tonight to make any type of determination one way or another. If we want to be able to take and add a ordinance, then we do have a deadline. If not, we don't have a deadline. It'll still default. Am I correct?
Yeah, in the sense that something's gonna happen whether you act on this or not. The answer is yes.
Yes. So, and I know we're running over things, yeah.
Well, I'm thinking here out loud, I know we got the police, fire, and health committee meeting coming up later this month. You guys could choose to have a joint committee meeting with the police, fire, and health and Los Angeles. That could be an option.
Or we could actually put it in there anyway.
I mean, but you know, you guys do the law, so you could, like I said, they could do a joint meeting, right, Thomas?
Or you could actually, if Eric's willing, just give it to them.
Yeah, that was what I was kind of thinking too.
Move it there.
Yeah, so that's under
Probably
police,
more
fire,
appropriate.
to be under health, could be
Well, it's under police and fire.
police and fire too, yeah.
Probably
So
more appropriate to sit there.
we could, yeah, we had that discussion. We're
So
kind
what's the
of,
penalty? So I can hear the whistle, train's coming into the station, okay, you violate that. Y'all better think about that. Because so they go out there, the police go out there, shame on you, you violate this ordinance, what is the penalty?
That's why I think we need to have more thought and look at what
That
others
we-
do.
Well,
We
yeah.
don't know.
It's currently a misdemeanor. Well, I'm not sure it's a minor misdemeanor,
You're
but
gonna
it
opt
actually
out,
might be.
it's not, you're gonna create an opt-out
Yeah,
that is not consistent with state law.
They could make it a more serious penalty than what the state of Ohio has, but I'm telling you what the state of Ohio has had as a penalty.
and I haven't, none of us have been actually seen any of this, so, I would say yes, here we are looking, gonna look at it more. And I don't want the impression that we're trying to rush something through. But we are rushed for time. We've already run over into another committee here, so. I would like to see and just note that, we will discuss this further. Next committee meeting will be June 7th at 7 o'clock.
Are we
And
sending this to the police, fire, and health? Is there any that we
do we need to do that? This is just a discussion area.
Yeah, but are we gonna send,
It's up to Eric.
are we sending that to the police, fire, and health?
I think we should.
Okay.
Would be kind of cool if you allowed the chiefs to have a conversation with their boss about a range of things, enforceability, staffing, how they're gonna handle this. None of this stuff.
No, I agree.
Phil stopped in to talk about something else. He said, what's going on with the ordinance? So I had a different impression from him. That's my impression, that it wasn't real urgent, that these are not mortars. Now, what Todd was saying about the larger size, they need to get their act together, because that's way different than I heard from the chief. Okay? It's not very productive when we get a message here that it's different there.
So,
Mayor, does moving it to fire, police and fire, give them the time to discuss it with that committee so that everybody has more information that they need to, I mean, can they?
This is, for me, it's a sleeping dog issue. The state legislature, and I'm not going to make a political statement, but there's a lot of these things where the state legislature is passing what's considered conservative, kind of right-wing stuff. And where you see a lot of cities acting on this proactively, you want to do a little bit of time to do blood typing on those cities. That's one thing I would point out. So you're going to find democratic cities acting on this in a reaction to. So I disagree with Thomas's analysis of the politics. This is
I
not.
didn't share a political analysis, Tom.
I don't
have a political analysis.
Just take some time and go chat.
okay,
I would say, from what I've seen, it's a wide variety of communities that are acting on this.
The police, fire, and health meeting's on May 19th, so that would give us 15 days to do a little bit more research and talk about it. So
yeah, I agree. So,
If you guys decide you want to do a joint meeting, let me know. And we can
okay,
advertise
we'll
it.
do that.
That'd be okay.
And I will ask for a motion of adjournment.
motion for adjournment.
Have a motion, I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. We are adjourned at 7:30.
7:27.
And
right, so, it is 7:32 PM on Wednesday, May 4th. I'm going to call the Utilities Committee meeting to order. I'll do a roll call of those here. Ms. Durbin is here, and so is, Mr. Richard. If I can have a motion for the approval of the previous meeting minutes for April 6th.
I'll make that motion.
All right, we'll do just a voice vote, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, then I'll need a motion to approve the agenda tonight as published.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second.
All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So the first thing on our agenda, and the only thing on our agenda tonight, is the sewer rates ordinance number 2022-20. We talked about this last month in this committee. We had a lengthy discussion of sewer rates and kind of the reason why we need to consider raising them to be equal to the water rates, which was historically kind of how Gavin ran the billing and the management of it. But over the years, water has gotten raises and sewage has not. So this kind of came to be whenever the fund balance and the sewage line in our budget was lower than what is comfortable, especially because we do have repairs and maintenance that need to be made to keep our sewage safe. We had talked about, what that would look like for our family to increase that rate for the sewage, and we looked at the different breakdowns of what that would look like. We talked about adding on a minimum service charge, which is something that we had not had before, for in-town and rural water rates, for those who do not use a full unit of water. As you can see on the back of your packet, it's the water and sewer rates that are current and then the proposed. I think I know for myself, after looking at this, the only thing that I didn't see was if this is just for residential or if this is also for business. I don't know if those are separated out.
No.
This is for both? Okay.
I'm sorry, it's not for business?
It's for both. So the water's not metered residential versus business. So that was really the question that I had. Matt was nice enough today to send us some water and sewer rates from cities around us. So you can see at the top here that the 4 units of usage, which is typical for a family home in Galleon, we can look to see kind of what the rates are in other communities. Not all of them are surrounding, but some of them are. I was kind of surprised to see that some of them were pretty low, and then I saw some that were $70 in comparison to our 31. But what I did take notice of was that we did have it on kind of the lower and the higher end side, and the average is $36.95, and ours would stay at $31.09, which is below the average of these communities that are compiled here. I think that it's definitely not in anyone's, no one has fun raising rates for residents, but to be financially prudent and smart, we have to look at how we're going to maintain and grow and keep what we have safe and remain in compliance with different entities that oversee us. So, as this ordinance is presented, I don't see any issue with it, but I'm sure there will be discussion.
I have a question. I think we need to ask ourselves how did we get to this point? When was the last time the sewer rates and water was increased last year? When was the last time sewer rates were increased?
It was 2011, right?
No, it's 13, and they were reduced.
So the last time they were increased.
They were reduced. Long before I was mayor and anybody sitting in here was in city government was the last time they were increased. They were decreased and then And I've been that way, I believe it was 13, like before. It was 13.
Yeah, we took it down.
I know that as council members and committee members, people typically don't like to increase rates or have those hard discussions because it makes people unhappy and angry. But I think that to look at a bill that hasn't been increased since 2013, almost 9 years, I cannot think of anything that has not increased in price, but you get the same service for in 9 years. I know that that's not anything for someone who, is limited in their income or, lives paycheck to paycheck. I don't take this lightly. Whenever we talked about it last month, it was going to end up being between $3 and $5 increase. And I know that we just, did the PCA, which is another $3 to $5 increase, and I think that is hard to hear and it's hard to say that that's just, it has to be that way. But this is one of those things I think it just has to be that way.
Well, let me add to this, Tom, on the sewer end of this, we have currently the fund balance is being reduced, am I correct?
Well, a couple of things real quick. I was pleased, sort of pleasantly surprised, and too exaggerated, but I was pleased that it finished at 1.5 when the auditor put this year's revenue and expenses and tied it to last year's, that latest fund balance report. I think it's 1.5 million, I think it's there. That, I was pleasantly surprised by that. So there's a couple other things, if I might, that I think are important to mention. One is that since the rates were reduced, we have taken on right around $800,000 of additional debt, 2 major capital projects. And the revenue that we've collected has only allowed us to issue notes, roll those notes, and pay the interest down. And so if revenues adjusted, if rates are increased, one of the things that I think would be a priority is to start allocating some of that new revenue to retiring that debt.
And that debt was incurred so that we can continue to provide sewage services to all of our customers.
Yeah, we bought a screw pump. That is definitely true. That is the inclined plane that takes the sewage up at the beginning of the treatment process. The other debt is a lift station that has, the goal is to take some of the pressure off the lines on the east side. That was the lift station that was built on Charles Street. That's what that was added for. But we didn't adjust rates when we took on that amount. So 800,000 is roughly what it was. We'll generate just out of fees about 1.5 million. That's about all that will generate. The rest of the income, when you look at the revenue report, comes from the notes that we'll borrow. So we've got debt that we took on that's half of the year's revenue. So as we were drawing down the fund balance from 4 million, I believe, down to this 1.5 million, the time to be able to have revenue to retire that debt, I think is something that we want to consider. I'm going to ramble on for one more minute. When you look at it multi-year, it's important to note that the operating deficit this year of about 200,000, a little bit more, about 200,000, half of that comes from severance pay that will, we're going to get hit really, get hit hard paying out people what they're owed. There are 3 retirees with pretty significant severance, if that's not quite the right word. There's 100,000 extra in the operating budget to pay those one-time expenses. So if rates are increased, let's say in the middle of the year, we'll be able to tackle a little bit of the debt service that I was just talking about. But quite honestly, the thing that will bring our operating budget into balance is the apply that money to that because of this one-time pretty significant expense. I'm going to make up a number, but I believe it's about $300,000, $400,000 to operate the plant. So there's the severance pay is about 20% of all payroll this year. That's just payroll, not benefits. Anyway.
And I think whenever we're talking about payroll, I think it's important to know too that this rate hasn't been raised, but obviously the cost of having employees and operating the plant has increased steadily year after year after year.
Salaries are always the highest cost in the neighborhood.
Right. So I think,
It's been going on for years.
yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why we continue to kind of watch this account dwindle, because we haven't been able to compensate the cost of the service because we haven't increased the cost of the service. So I also would find it important to note that the water rates are not being raised. It's the sewer rates that are being raised to match the current water rate at this time. So I think that I just want to be clear in my speaking whenever I'm talking about water and sewer rates, that the water rate is going to remain the same. The water rate has not changed this year. Then the sewage rate will just be raised to meet the rate of the water.
Right. Well, to piggyback on what the mayor indicated was too, was the issue of the debt involved. I don't know if anybody, I know that he knows about it, but all of you probably have seen them too. The screws that we have out there, we're not talking something that lays on this table. It might be the size of this table, another.
I was at the meeting several years ago when they bought the screw.
Oh, okay, so you know.
$250,000 and Mr. Ward had a picture of it.
Yeah. Yeah, my.
It was about 5 or 6 years ago, I think.
Well, and that's the thing, that the debt on that, to continue just to roll that debt over, assuming that the other equipment in this treatment plant is going to depreciate, which it all does, especially when it deals with as caustic a material as wastewater. Down the road, if we don't retire that debt, we're going to be in a situation where we still got that debt, and now we're going to pile on another part of the debt to add to that.
Yeah, we can't roll the notes. Then it's already happened with the screw pump. We have to retire some of the debt. It has to go on an amortization. The lift station isn't quite there yet, but we're already hitting the point where we're going to have to begin to pay it down.
Right.
So anyway, I mean,
And that's going to be, to do that, based on if we don't do anything with the rate, that's going to take and reduce that fund.
Well, my concern was that when we got out of fiscal emergency in October 2018, those funds looked really well, but they've been taken down. Now, the end of last year, they're back up again. Okay, what is the reason for that? When you do the planning for this sewer department, do you plan on taking part of the operating monies and maybe put that towards the principal of the debt or set it aside for something? I don't think we've been doing that, have we?
So, yeah, that's.
well, there is some debt that's in permanent financing in sewer. It's before we went back to the mayor form. Most of the debt that we're talking about is in the note form. So all we've done is borrow the money and pay the interest.
We borrowed money to pay the interest.
Yeah. That's we issue promissory notes, good for 1 year. At the end of that year period, you either pay the $700,000 or $600,000 start out, or you borrow it again and pay the interest. So we have, because we have kept the rates low, and the interest rates along this period have been, the highest was 1.5%. It made pretty good sense to not increase rates. The one thing I want to correct, that the fund balance at the end of 20 was higher than the end of 21. What I didn't say real well is that I thought that the sewer 60 Fund 603 would be more depleted when Brian got things put together than where it turned out. I thought we'd be at less than $1.5 million. So I just checked, it's 400,000 on that payroll item, 400,000 for staff at the sewage plant, and we're going to get hit with roughly $100,000 for the severance. So that's a one-time expense that won't be there.
So how many people are retiring? They're retiring
There's 3 people retiring at the wastewater plant.
this year, all at one time?
Kind of almost all at once. 2, I think 2 are, it's almost like a skydive. They're jumping out of the same plane the same day almost. And then the superintendent is leaving about 30 days later. Isn't that, I'm looking over there and getting that.
So that would be Doug Begley?
Bagley's leaving and 2 other folks that they're real solid people. I mean, it's going to be hard to replace them, but they're age eligible and they put in their tours. So, anyways, the only reason I bring that up again is to emphasize that the payroll's 400,000. We got 100,000 in one-time exit expenses that really makes the operating deficit worse this year than it has been in the past.
But even though the salaries won't be as high next year, we still could not continue to keep the rates where they were at and safely operate the balance.
No, I think what we're going to do is we're going to get into if you will, a danger zone where we have less than 6 months operating cash in the fund balance, and that's one of the standards that we established at the end of the fiscal emergency and have maintained in almost all cases since then.
So are there any questions on the ordinance or on the schedule that we're looking at here for the water?
I'm just concerned as how we got to this point. I understand that water rates never increased, but we had $1.5 million at the end of 2021.
Yeah.
So you're concerned how it's got to this place?
I just feel it's another burden on the taxpayer. We had PCA last month. What are we going to have next month?
I don't want to be contrary. I don't think it's a burden on, not on the taxpayer. I mean, the cost of the service is higher than it was 9 years ago.
Yeah, but it's still a burden to the taxpayer. It doesn't matter what the amount is, it's still a burden to a lot of people. $3 can mean a lot to a person on a fixed income. $1 can make a difference. Until you're on a fixed income, you will never understand that.
So how would you suggest that we get the money to keep the fund balance healthy enough to?
I think we should,
have fiscal emergency?
I think we should wait maybe 3 or 4 months, maybe 5, and see how it goes. And I understand we need to pay the debt down, but I think we should have been paying the debt down before now. We've just been paying interest.
And that's not anything that we can control in this committee as to how previous committees or administrations work to pay debt down. How did we get to this point? I don't know.
But it wasn't.
We have to move forward. I mean, it sucks that it happened, and it's sad that the fund balance has been depleting, and that these things haven't been done maybe to the way of certain people's liking. But I think to wait 4 or 5 more months, we'll be looking at September, October, then a month and a half in council, we'll be looking at December, and then it will be another year that we just keep draining this balance lower and lower and lower, and then we will be in fiscal emergency because we won't have enough money to sustain it. And that's
citizen every time we, look at any type of rate adjustment. It is, if it's going up, it is going to be a burden. It's a burden on the folks that are now paying, I guess the recent amount out here by McDonald's is $4 a gallon. Yes, that's a burden. The question though is that as a part of the responsibility that we incur because of to maintain the service for everybody, we can't allow the fund to get to the point where we have a problem with it. Now, how we got here, that would take a whole big, huge discussion, I'm sure, because there's all sorts of dynamics that was involved. And I was on the committee when we first looked at not even raising anything, because we had a certain amount. We thought, okay, we'll go ahead and not raise the rates. We will be, like you said, and we're always concerned about the citizens. We're the citizens. You know, I'm not looking to raise anything for myself. I wouldn't want to, and I'm on a fixed income. The bottom line is if we don't do something, now, you've mentioned waiting until for several months down the road. That's what we've been kind of doing, because the mayor had brought this up to the committee last year and the year before. And we thought, well, let's just see where it goes. We're now looking at a economy that cost is not going down. Everything is going up. We need to be able to retire some debt instead of, as you indicated, instead of just borrowing to pay the interest. You run into issues when you start leaving those little tidbits, like I call them, out there. They have a tendency to catch up on you. It's like the gentleman goes out there and buys a car today, buys a truck tomorrow. Eventually, it's time to pay the piper. And unfortunately, you don't want to be at that back end of that, to where you've got so much debt incurred that you're into a problem taking care of what you basically need to do. So my thought is, I agree that while I agree with you in the sense of the concern for the citizen, everybody in this room is concerned for the citizens. We're all citizens. But again, we also have to be mindful that we have to be able to take and maintain a service to everybody, and that includes the hospital, all the other folks that are in the community as well. And by not raising the rates, that will become in jeopardy in 6 months, 10 months, whatever it comes down the road. I'm just afraid that if we keep putting it off, that it's going to be worse instead of better. I don't see anything going down in price. I don't see any of the other issues that are part of this rate that addresses the sewer system. Matter of fact, I see where things that will be coming up for maintenance that's going to need to be done, and that's going to be a cost onto that. See what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, but I don't agree with everything you said. But also, are we replacing any sewer lines any place in this city? Have we done anything about that?
I know that you've asked that before, and I know
And
the
I've never gotten any
answer. The
answer.
answer was that the plan is more reactive because we don't have a lot of funds, and we talked about this whenever we talked about, whenever we talked about everything in this committee, is that it's hard to make plans and to make things better whenever you don't have the money to do it.
I understand that, but
So, is there
maybe
scheduled
4 years ago,
maintenance?
you should have planned for something. I don't see any planning here.
Well, right now we're planning
To raise the rate.
So I think that, I don't know, I'm not gonna change your mind tonight.
Well, I'm
So,
not
and you're not
gonna
gonna
change mine
change-
either, because I've talked to some people and they weren't happy about the PCA, and then this comes along the next month. I think you could have spaced them out a couple of months, it might have gone over better.
Wow. But
I
Tom, do you
just,
have something you'd like to say?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll answer the question the same way I answered it last time without trying to be jerky about it. We're not replacing sewer lines. What we're doing is relining sewer lines. And one of the few capital improvements that were made to the sewer system generally, this is not the treatment plant, but in the collection system, was relining that trunk line that goes through Heisey Park. I'm sure anybody who spends any time at the park saw it there most of last summer. Okay, so the answer to your question, short answer is yes. We're not replacing them, but we are renewing them by lining their where there are holes in them or where the sewage, the roots just creates a constant infestation. So this year we have a project, where East Church Street becomes Murray, okay, out by Kobe Park. There is an area there that is failing. So we're lining from about the curve to the intersection of East Street. I'm going to make it, I've been citing numbers. I think it's 700 feet, could be a little bit, but if you know where I'm talking about, right there. So that's a project for this year. Another project's a smaller project. It's responding to concerns and complaints at Aspen, and that is we're cleaning out that line and making some replacements to the sewer line that had become clogged up. So the short answer is yes, and so I don't want to argue about whether there's enough planning or not. I think what we found is there's enough money for about one maintenance project such as I just described per year. And so yeah, we've been tackling those in a worst case basis.
Okay.
It does very little, doesn't accomplish much to have a large capital improvements plan if there's not the willingness to fund those improvements. The biggest thing I worry about on the sewer side is the deferred maintenance at the plant. Some issues that were identified, I can remember not having a backup generator was described as unconscionable. We still don't have a backup generator. We're not even close. So we're struggling to be able to retire the debt on the two projects that we've already invested. And we hear suggestions and criticisms already about things in wastewater that we're not doing. So we're not doing it not because we want to hold our breath and not do it. There's no money to do it. I don't think you want to borrow $750,000 out of the sewer fund to get a backup generator. Everybody ready to vote that one out? So it's not come forward because I think it's a fair read of what council believes the community can afford. So, I think that's real important. We're not addressing any kind of plan for the renewal, replacement, whatever we want to do with a nearly 40-year-old wastewater plant. So, that's a bigger issue, but what I'm trying to convey is we don't have the revenue now. We're not breaking even, we're losing money. And we're suggesting, I think, if you equalize those rates, it generates a few $100,000 more a year. So it's not like there'll be a windfall and we'll start doing all the things that were promised. This is just trying to begin retiring the existing debt we have, pay operations, and I believe one of the, if you'll indulge me one more second. In the abstract, it's sort of fashionable, not, to talk about keeping wages down, not having benefits too high and those sorts of things. On a daily operations side, and it's no different than a private sector business. If you don't pay your health well, you don't have good health. And one of the things that we've been successful at over the last 8.5 years is that we have compensated people fairly. And so I anticipate needing to be able to have money in this and other funds to be able to tackle the union negotiations, which will start, in sooner than 4 or 5 months. Anyways, thanks for letting me say that. If you're losing money now every month, and particularly where we have a debt payment, it really draws down, then I don't know why or how you'd expect us to have that trend stop. So the only thing I see waiting 5 or 6 months to see if something changes is that we'll continue to lose money at the current rate. We've seen very little reduction in usage or increase in usage. So that idea of adding customers to raise revenue, it's just not, I don't believe that's in the cards over the next year or two.
I have one more question. Is the screw machine and the lift station for the east side, are those in the budget for this year?
But what's in the budget is to roll the debt. We had a conversation today. Finance will see this, whatever that is, the 17th or whatever. Allison Binkley with Squire Patton Boggs, who's done this since way before I was mayor. The bond council preparing our debt issuance. We had a conversation, myself and Nikki and the auditor and his key staff today to talk about that ordinance that's coming. So what you'll see this year is just the rolling of the notes. If council raises sewer rates and raises revenue, let's look at it that way, then before we have to reissue those notes, then I'm looking at paying down as much of that debt as possible. So it will likely be a renewal. It may include paying down, we're required to pay down $10,000. It may require paying down $75,000, something like that, maybe $100,000. We don't have the revenue to make a big dent in it, but we've got to do more than a little chipping away.
Well, it seems to me too that with the current, or with this rate proposal, as the mayor has indicated, it's trying to be mindful of the folks that are on fixed income, the folks that are that for whatever reason this would affect more than other folks, because in theory, to accomplish everything that we really need to maybe do, the rates should be higher than what they are currently proposed. I think that, and this is going back to the former committees, because I've sat on those committees too, is we've always tried to be mindful of, and everybody involved. We didn't raise the rates sometimes. We lowered the rates sometimes. I think that this proposal will at least accomplish some of the things that we need to do.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the past few years, you've seen these funds not where they should be, or you're not listening or something?
No, we did the same thing that you're proposing. We sat back and said, well, let's look at it in 6 months.
So now you're in crisis management by doing this, that's all
You
I
just-
was
We're
saying.
not in crisis management.
No, we're not that, but my point is, my point is that I've been there where you're talking about, in the sense of, okay, let's put it off a little bit further down the road. Let's see what tomorrow, short term, is going to do, and it's not worked. We still have to eventually raise it because nothing else is going down. The bottom line is everything that's involved in this process to treat sewage, to put it out, has not gone down at all. And in many cases, because of what the economy is doing now, it's probably double. We just probably haven't quite seen it yet, in my estimation.
Let me make 2 more comments.
So
Madam Chair, can I make 2 comments real quickly? One is, we were unable to raise rates for the last 2 years. So this, crisis management, somehow there's, anybody who's been working on this has known for 2 years we need to make an adjustment. The committee was unwilling to consider a sewer rate. We held off on water for a year. We'd be better off on water if we'd done that a couple years ago. That's the first thing. Second thing that is real important to think about, sleep on, if you will, you know who our biggest customer is? You know who writes us the most checks? Community action. So this notion, this is not, there are resources out there in the summer and in the winter that have a tremendous impact on our lower income and fixed income people in the community. So don't swallow that. I'm just shouting out for community action because they do a lot more than the hand raising to pay the bills of low income and fixed income people.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's pretty important to remember. So it'll be out there. They have more money than they've had ever in those utility assistance programs. So that's what we should be doing instead of fighting like we're trying to protect them. We should be opening up the avenues and the information for lower income people to take advantage of that program or the PRC program at Human Services. That's the solution. Starving the utility of money, if it wasn't so serious, it'd be laughable.
I think that we have had plenty of opportunity to hear how each committee member feels about ordinance number 2022-20. So I think that it would be wise to ask for a motion to move it on to full council.
And Madam Chairwoman, I will make the motion to move ordinance 2022-20 on the full council.
I'll second that motion. We'll have to do a voice vote, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
Okay. So this will move on to council. Is there any other business that we need to address this evening?
One more question, please.
Sure.
Mr. O'Leary, when are you looking at the lift station on the east end?
Help me understand, what are you talking about?
You said the lift station on the east end of town, you were talking about the lift station.
Yeah, I'm talking about Charles Street.
Right.
Yeah, when am I looking at it? It's built. It was built a couple years ago.
That's part of the debt that we have. Hold on.
Oh, okay, all right. I took you as indicating it was.
No, it's the two debts we've incurred, but we haven't had the money to do anything other than borrow money to
Pay the interest.
pay the interest.
Yeah.
Okay. So with all that said, we will have our next meeting on June 1st, 2022 at 7 p.m. And also, I would like to note that all of the contact information for committee members and council members is listed on the county website. If a citizen would like to contact any of us to discuss this, or if you have something in mind that you'd like to bring, I would say I very rarely get comment from the public, but I do represent at large. So I think that's always an option to reach out if you're unable to attend these meetings. And with that, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:12 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, you need to ask.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right.
All in favor?
Well, I
Aye.
think I.
8:12.
8:12.